Hello. Thank you for joining us for this primary election candidate forum for our Washington State Legislature. The forum is presented by the League of Women Voters of Thurston County and TCTV. The League is a nonprofit, nonpartisan political organization that encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in their government. The League registers new voters, studies issues, and advocates for its positions with the legislature. Despite its name, the League is open to both men and women. I'm Karen Tweet from the League, and I'll be moderating this forum. With me today are three candidates for District 35 State Representative, Position 1. They are, to my left, Josiah Rowell, Dan Griffey, and Kathy Haight. For this forum, candidates will have 2 minutes for an opening statement, and then I'll ask them questions in alternating order. The first person asked the question will have 2 minutes for a response, followed by a 1-minute response from the other candidates. Each candidate will have a 1-minute closing statement at the end. We'll begin with opening statements, starting with Kathy Haight.
Thank you very much, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with the audience and the League of Women Voters. I've been a League member for a long time, and I appreciate the work that you do. I am a veterinarian who has been in practice in Shelton, Washington for 35 years. I have a small business there with my husband, and also my son has joined me in that practice. I was originally on a school board, Southside School Board, for 12 years, many years ago. And I realized how important the decisions made at the state legislative level are and the impact that it has on our local school districts. I ran for office as a legislator, and I very much appreciate the opportunity to serve the public, to work in the legislature, to work both sides of the aisle, as well as across the rotunda with the House and the Senate. I have been chair of the Education Appropriations Subcommittee and Regular Committee for several years. Education funding is the focus that I have in my work in the legislature, but I also serve on the Ag and Natural Resources Committee. As a veterinarian, I bring quite a bit of expertise to that committee with my background. I was born and raised on a farm. I've worked on large animals and small animals, and I also really do understand some of the medical issues that we deal with, and probably that's on a committee I'm not on, which is healthcare, but I do have a strong background in health and human services. So all of those things, I believe, help me to do a good job as a legislator. I try to be a strong leader. I try to encourage others to work together to solve problems, and if I can't do it, I try to help them find those that can. So I try to be a leader that listens and responds to the needs of the people in our district.
Thank you. Dan?
Good morning. My name is Dan Griffey. First of all, let me thank the League of Women Voters for putting on this forum. An educated electorate is very important in Washington State. My background is I'm a lifelong resident of the 35th District. My entire 43 years I've spent there. I'm a professional firefighter. I have 3 daughters and the new love of my life, my grandbaby boy. So I finally have a boy to pal around with. I have, in my 43 years, I've seen a distinct and terrible change in my district. We went from a district that was teeming with in-district jobs, values, and traditions, and every one of them seems to be at risk of going away from good-natured legislation that actually hurts people. From private property ownership rights, in rural Thurston County, they're having to do up to 90% land set aside for pocket gopher habitat, to rural Mason County, where we've had the traditional jobs that we have done or had in our district going away because of the spotted owl legislation. I think it's time that our legislators worry about our sons and daughters' ability to live, work, and build in our communities. I will make it my mission to support, maintain, and defend private property ownership rights and support conditions that encourage business growth in our district so our sons, daughters, and grandchildren can work and help build the community that I love so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Josiah?
Well, before I get started, I'd like to say thank you to Karen and the Thurston County League of Women's Voters for making this event possible. Your commitment to civic engagement is nothing less than honorable, so thank you very much. My name is Josiah Rowell, and I'm a candidate for the Washington State House 35th District. My background is 10 plus years in the United States Navy. I've been on 3 deployments in the last 10 years. And in the last few years, I've come to a personal realization. And that personal realization is that we have some major issues and challenges right here in Washington State that need to be dealt with. With that said, as a team, my wife and I have made a commitment to refocus our efforts and dedication to the issues and challenges here in Washington State. And something that is very common in the armed forces is coming together with people who you don't always see eye to eye with, people who come from different backgrounds, people who have different belief systems and different value systems, and coming together with these people to form a team in order to lead and in order to do what is right and in order to accomplish objectives. And one thing is clear: we need leaders in Olympia who have the ability to build relationships and reach across the aisle. We need leaders in Olympia who know how and are willing to come together and work together in order to do what's right and in order to lead. And over the next few years, we are facing some extraordinary challenges here in Washington State. And extraordinary challenges demand extraordinary leadership. And I just want you to know that I am committed to working hard, and I believe that with new leadership will come a new direction for Washington State. Thank you.
Thank you. By prior agreement, Dan will get the first question. You have 2 minutes to respond to this question. And then your 2 candidates will have a minute to respond. What is your position on funding the transportation plan?
Well, there's quite a few plans out there. Governor's calling, put together a commission to study vehicle miles traveled tax, which I don't support that funding method. It would disproportionately injure the rural community, as we have to drive to get anywhere, and we don't have the transit capabilities that the larger areas have. I think what we have to do is step back and look at what we can do to improve and reform our transportation, what DOT is forced to do. By regulation and legislation, we actually price our projects in Washington State, our capital projects, almost out of reach. For example, the Columbia River Crossing, we've spent millions, hundreds of millions of dollars on that project, and not a shovel full of dirt has been turned over. It is time that we look at true reforms in DOT. Let's talk about not taxing sales tax on our capital infrastructure projects. It's a tax on a tax. It is overburdensome to the DOT. Let's talk about how we can streamline the studies that the DOT has to go through before we develop these projects. So let's reform DOT. Let's spend the money very wisely before we talk about revenue. Thank you.
Josiah?
Well, first of all, I'd like to make it clear that I do not support a gas tax increase. Number one, I believe that we should not be paying state sales tax on our transportation projects. It increases the price and cost of these projects exponentially while transferring money out of the transportation budget back into the general fund. I believe that we need some major reforms within the Washington State Department of Transportation. I believe that we should hire construction and transportation experts to sit in the governor's office, the Office of Financial Management, and to sit in on the Joint Transportation Committee. In addition, I believe that we should give the Joint Transportation Committee a year-round annual authority to conduct oversight and quality assurance on work in progress by the Washington State Department of Transportation. I believe if we implement these reforms, if we cut back on paying state sales tax on these projects, that we'll see a very big increase in the affordability of our projects, and that will go a long ways to help us deal with funding transportation. Thank you.
Well, transportation is a huge challenge for the state of Washington. We passed a gas tax by a vote of the people over 10 years ago, and now we have basically used all of those dollars to do the projects that are done. We have ongoing money that comes in for just the maintenance and operations of our roads, but to build any major projects to really expand the number of lanes going by, say, the Joint Base Lewis and McChord, so people can get to work in a timely manner, is going to be a huge challenge. If we have a gas tax to probably raise around $10 billion, many projects could get done, but it will have to be something that goes to a vote of the people. I think we have tolls that Kitsap County is already paying in ferries and bridges. And there are some improvements that need to be made in how the operations of DOT are done. But to think we're going to get major projects done without some tax reform is not realistic.
Thank you. Josiah, you get the next question first. How can the state legislature work to reduce the burden on those seeking higher education in our state?
Well, number one, I think our first priority needs to be K-12 basic education. If we make that a priority and we fully fund that, then these children have a better chance of moving into higher education. I believe it's like something like 14% of high school graduates in Mason County move on to complete a 4-year degree. And I think that the issue and the root cause starts with K-12 basic education. If we focus on that, it gives these children in our communities a better chance to make it to a 4-year university and to complete that degree. In addition, I believe that we need to do everything that we can to stop the increase and the growing expense of tuition for 4-year universities, trade schools, and community colleges. Thank you.
Kathy?
Well, the federal government walked away from helping to fund public higher education many years ago. And over the last 5 years, as we went through a major recession in funding, we cut back the funding for higher education in a huge way. So it used to be that the state was paying about 60% of what it costs for an undergraduate student in our public universities, and the students were paying about 30%. And over the last 5 years, that shifted. So the students are paying 60%. The state is paying like 30%. And that is devastating to higher education students that are trying to get through. But we've also done online. We've expanded the opportunity for students to get first 2 years at our community colleges, and it's important that we continue to support our community college system. And for higher ed, I just returned from a conference where we're talking about how can students get through faster, rather than having to spend 3 and 4 years undergrad and another 2 or 3 years in professional schools. We have to help them focus on the learning that they need in engineering or technology and help them get there faster, because it's the number of years that they spend in school that runs up their bills horribly.
Dan?
I think it's important that we focus on them being prepared to get to college so they don't waste time having to take remedial education. I mean, I think that's where we have to start. So the K-12 program is it needs to be our primary focus. I agree with Kathy. The state has increased opportunities for online education and ways to streamline that education. We need to invest more in our community colleges to get them a running start so they can go into our 4-year universities with a head start. But we can't forget our vocational skills. We need mechanics. We need HVAC certified people to put in our air conditioning. We need welders. We need all kinds of tradesmen and women. And so we can't forget that. Not all students are college bound. And I think sometimes we get a little too focused on getting them into college and forget that the vocations can pay very good family wage incomes. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy, this one goes to you first. What are your suggestions for enhancing an atmosphere of cooperation, compromise, and goodwill among legislators?
Well, I've tried very hard to do exactly that. Any bill that I try to sponsor or do sponsor, I always go to the other side of the aisle and ask a Democrat that I think would be interested in that issue a Republican, to sign on the bill to work issues forward. And so working across the aisle within the House is really important. Probably the biggest one that I did this last year, the bill didn't pass, but it had to do with small operations of people making cakes and cookies and things in their kitchens, and how much money they're able to make without having an industrial level commercial kitchen. And that was great work, and that was originally sponsored by a Republican. So taking some of the Republican issues and trying to help them is the other thing. And then I think we need to remember that it's not just across the aisle, but it's across the rotunda. So I worked very closely with Senator Sheldon on 3 bills that he is very proud that they were his bills, but they were also my bills. They didn't happen to make it through the Senate, so I made sure that his bills made it through the House, and that had to do with the Lake Newatzel, it had to do with low-income housing in Belfair, as well as having another judge in our county courts. So it isn't just across the aisle, it's across the rotunda, and also really looking at the constituencies. We have a very diverse district. From one end to the other. There is no one answer that's, I've often said, I can vote for about anything, and half of the people love me for it, and the other half will probably hate me for it. So you have to, if you represent the 35th district, you have to stay to the middle if you're really going to help the people in our district in a significant way and keep us moving forward. It doesn't do any good to just vote no. You've got to find compromises and move us forward. Dan?
Well, that's a good question. I think in all interpersonal relations, you have to start from a position of agreement and move towards a position to start talking about the things that you disagree on. For an example, I'm working with Representative Brian Blake to make sure we keep and maintain our gun ownership rights. Brian Blake is a Democrat representative in Grace Harbor County. I made the mistake when I first started running is kind of just leaning towards the Republican side, and I am introducing myself to the Democrat side, getting to know them, taking them out to lunch, just getting to know somebody on a personal level starts the negotiation off right. And starting from a position of agreement and working to where we don't agree, I think is the best way to have bipartisan success in our bills in Olympia. Thanks.
Josiah?
Well, I think it's important, if you do represent your district, if you do represent the communities and the constituents in your district, if you truly make an effort to be in touch with your community, you will end up engaging in bipartisan working relationships in the legislature. I always go back to my military experience in the 10 years and the leadership lessons that I've learned. And like I said, in the military, it's common to come together with people who come from completely different backgrounds, who have completely different belief systems and different value systems, but you reach over, you build these relationships, you create a dialogue, and you do what's right for your team in order to lead and in order to accomplish objectives. And that's what we need in Olympia. People who are not afraid to reach across the aisle to build relationships and work together in order to do what's right. And that's what true leadership is, that's what representing your district is, and that's what I plan to do in Olympia. Thank you.
Thank you. So Dan, you get the last of the questions first. Can the state fund basic education with current revenue without gutting the budgets of all other state services?
Yes, I think we absolutely can. The governor's called for across-the-board cuts. I remember when Governor Gregoire called for across-board cuts. I didn't support it then, and I don't support across-the-board cuts now. We have to have a true priorities-based approach in Olympia. We must understand that our first priority is an educated electorate. It's our constitutional obligation. I support funding education first so that we do not use education as a political football. Then we prioritize our spending down the line with transportation, taking care of those who cannot take care of themselves, the extremes of age, the elderly, and the physically and mentally challenged. By the priorities-based approach and zero-based budgeting, we can get our spending under control. The OFM is projecting about a 4.2% increase in revenues biennium over biennium. So we're still seeing monies come in. We just have to be very diligent about how we spend our money, make sure we prioritize our spending well, and I think we can do a very good job with and live within our means, and not ask our businesses who are still on the ropes trying to pull out of this economic downturn, and our citizens to pay more. Thank you.
Josiah?
Absolutely. I believe that K-12 basic education can be funded with current revenues. The Washington State Supreme Court and the Constitution says that K-12 basic education is a paramount responsibility. And what that means is that we should be funding basic education first. I believe that it should have its own budget. That budget should be attached to a requirement to fund by March 1st. If we do that, if we prioritize state spending, funding basic K-12 education is no longer an issue. Then we can move on to other priorities such as transportation. So I believe that that's what we need to do. It's a paramount responsibility. Actions speak louder than words. We need to do what's right. We need to get the job done. We need to stop talking about it, and we need to fund education first.
Kathy?
So my focus has been on education, and funding is the biggest challenge that we have. I really worked hard to establish the Committee on Education Funding Appropriations so that we could see where the money comes from and where the money goes. K-12 is our priority, it's our paramount duty, but it would make no sense to take too much money away from early childhood education. If we don't give them the kind of supports and services that they need, they walk in the kindergarten in no condition to really take off at that level and succeed. So we have to stay invested in the early childhood. And then if our priority is to make sure every student graduates from high school, I think we better be sure that they have the other opportunities beyond graduating from high school with our technology schools as well as the higher education. So there has to be a balance. It doesn't make any sense to just do K-12 at the sacrifice of the other two ends. And I think it's important to remember that the McCleary decision isn't about the total amount of money. The legislature said how much they want to spend, but the McCleary decision said that money should not be collected out of local property tax levies, that it should be collected at the state and then sent back to the schools, which I believe may threaten local control, and I have concerns about that. I'll be working on that issue.
So thank you. That's the end of the questions, and now we have time for a 1-minute closing statement from each of you. So Josiah, you want to start?
Again, thank you for this opportunity, Karen, and the Thurston County League of Women's Voters. I appreciate this. My name is Josiah Rowell. I'm running for State House 35th District, and I would appreciate your vote. I would appreciate your support. After serving my nation for 10 plus years, I would appreciate and love the opportunity to serve you, our communities, and the 35th District and the state of Washington right here in Olympia. Thank you so much.
Dan?
My name is Dan Griffey. I'm a professional firefighter, a father, a grandfather, a supporter, and lifelong resident of my district. When I'm elected, I will work on legislation to declare hydroelectric power renewable so we can lower our power rates, to protect your private property ownership rights by either completely reforming the Growth Management Act or suspending the Growth Management Act. And I will work very hard to make sure our sons and daughters have opportunities in the 35th District to stay and help build the district that I love so much. We must fix the business climate, encourage businesses to come to the 35th District. I have an idea of innovation zones in all the timber depressed communities to do what New York did and reduce the taxes, go to zero taxes for 10 years for new businesses that expand into our district so our sons and daughters can stay in our district and work to build it as we have. Thank you.
Kathy?
Well, thank you very much. Again, this opportunity has been great. I, as a mother and now a grandmother, I too have a grandson that live and work in this district. I very much love this place that we know and grow in, and maintaining that is so important. I do see some big issues in the future, and I believe that I can provide the leadership, that I have the integrity and the honesty, and I really have an understanding of the differences in the urban and rural challenges in the legislature. I'm committed to working hard on those issues and hopefully maintaining our lifestyle in the 35th District, and I would like 2 more years to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. That brings us to the end of this forum. Thank you, candidates, and thank you to TCTV and the League of Women Voters for making this forum possible. Viewers out there, we hope you will vote on August 5th and that this information will help you make an informed choice about your candidates. Thank you and good day.